Welcome to the Dynasty Playbook, Dynasty subreddit's dedicated podcast. I'm your host, Drew. You can find me on Reddit at EAF Marine. You can find me on Twitter at DrewDotson NFL. With me is my co-host, Tyler. You can find Tyler on Reddit at Barles and on Twitter at HBomb9508. Scott's not with us this week. He's had a long weekend, so he's doing a little bit of resting. But we're here bringing you the same quality content even without him. Hell, it might be even a little bit better. But anything new this week, boss?
Nothing new here, man. Just, working, fantasy football, and getting ready for the drafts. We're almost there.
Yeah. And by working, you mean putting out your first IDP article, getting out there?
You humble me.
Yeah, I'm throwing you under the bus, dog. That's what's up.
You're a good man.
All right. Well, now that we got everything that's super uncomfortable out of the way, because nobody likes being their own hype squad. Let's jump right into our college player discussion for the week. And this first one should be fairly easy because it's Amari Cooper. And who doesn't like Amari Cooper? He's a junior wide receiver out of Alabama, for those of you living under a rock. He's going to be 21 at the start of the 2015 season, so super, super young. And who doesn't love young wide receivers? And I watched a fair amount of his tape, and to me, his biggest negative in his game is the fact that Blake Sims was his quarterback. That's about it. Tyler, I know you were digging through his tape trying to find a negative. Did you ever have any luck?
Not really. A couple things. I mean, these are very minor things. I noticed he has a tendency to get a little bit handsy downfield. Like if he wants to run a curl or break off a route, 10 or 12 yards downfield, he has a tendency to get his hands on the defender and push off a little bit. Could lead to some OPIs. Could be nothing. I'm not too worried about it. There were a few times when the defender got their hands on him, a bigger, more physical defender, could kind of knock him off his route a little bit. But no, I mean, if we're looking for negatives on this kid, the list is super, super short. He's the best route runner in this class, and it's not even close as to who the second best route runner is. He stops on a dime. He has incredible footwork. Man, he's the total package. He's great in the screen game. He looks like a leader out there. You never see him jawing at somebody after the play. He's a flip the ball to the ref kind of guy. After he scores on you, he's been there before. He knows he's been there before, and he wants you to know it too. So I love Amari Cooper. He is my 101. I don't see anything changing between now and the rookie drafts. He's a complete prospect. When you're watching tape of college wide receivers, he's the guy. When you look at him, you say that's what a wide receiver is supposed to look like. He's my guy. I love Amari Cooper, and I'm hoping to get as many shares as I possibly can of this kid.
Yeah, the dude is an absolute technician. You're not going to find a more refined wide receiver coming out of college, more refined than Sammy Watkins was. And I can't remember a prospect that was more refined than he was. That's really where my biggest concern has been was he's so refined that how much more room does he have to improve? How much farther does he have till he reaches his ceiling? And can we almost see his ceiling? Is his ceiling, a lower wide receiver one or a higher wide receiver one? And that's why he's, 1A, 1B with Kevin White, because I can see Kevin White being the next Des Bryant. And, I don't know if Cooper's so developed already that I don't know if he can even get that much better, or if he's already capped at being just as awesome as he already is. And I mean, don't take that as me, knocking on Cooper, because pretty much what I'm getting at is he's as close to a sure thing as you're going to get in this draft, because he's already a badass. He's already lighting the world on fire. It's just I don't know how much better he can get. He's like you said, he's a total package. His open field vision is spectacular, and he looks like he's just going out there, and it's just another day. Just like when he's at the combine, everything looked effortless. Like, he just goes out there and does what he's got to do, and he's a stud doing it.
Yeah, I mean it's cut and dry with this kid. It's cut and dry. If you want to go poking holes in his games, you're going to be looking. You're going to be looking for a long time trying to find a lot of negatives on him because they're just not there. Like Drew said, he's super polished. He's pro ready day one. I just can't. I can't say enough about this kid. I love him. I loved him last year. He's been on my radar for a long time now, and I say he's the man. Coop's going to be a superstar, and I don't really see. I don't think there's even a really decent chance of him busting. I think he's going to be the real deal. I mean, he's a super safe play, and that's why I like him at 101. And I think I like Kevin White. I do. I think Kevin White is an outstanding receiver, but I'm super hesitant to put him in the same tier as Coop because it feels almost like I'm getting cute. You hear that phrase thrown around a lot. If I'm trying to find a reason to put White over Cooper, it's just because I'm trying to get cute. I'm trying to play the ceiling or the upside game, and I'm not sure that the White even has that more upside than Cooper. Look at a guy like Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown's not 6'3", 220. He's not this, massive, red zone threat due to his size, but he runs incredibly crisp routes. He's always open, and he's probably the best wide receiver in the game right now. And that's hard for me to say because I am the captain of team big wide receiver. I love the big guys, but a guy like Antonio Brown, you got to love a player like that's going to get himself open, runs the great routes, and that's who Cooper kind of reminds me of, to be honest.
Yeah, and you say, you don't want to get cute, but those same guys that were getting cute last year and put Evans over Watkins, it's not looking like such a terrible decision now. If you're approaching it with the sound process and you're not just doing it to be a contrarian, I don't view it as being cute. They're 1A and 1B for me for a reason. It depends on your team construction. Because if you're in a complete rebuild, you don't have a wide receiver to your name, I'm taking Cooper because he's surefire. He's gonna be holding down your team. Kevin White's more of a gamble. If Cooper busts, you're looking at a floor of Golden Tate, in my opinion. Whereas if Kevin White busts, you're looking at hell, give me a wide receiver out of the top 100 that's a big body. Aaron Dobson. As much as it kills me to say that, Kevin White's a guy I'm going to take if my team's already fairly stacked and I got the 101 by chance or through trade. If I want a guy that is going to have a chance to blow up into my lineup, but he can't really. And maybe I am just getting cute. Maybe I am. I don't care. And the reason we're trying to poke holes in Cooper's game at this point is because there's on the surface there's nothing wrong with the guy. He's practically Jesus. It's ridiculous. There's nothing wrong with him. This is going to turn into the Amari Cooper hour. So. Let's put a pin in that. We love Amari Cooper. If you want to take him at 101, take him at 101. Let's move on to our next college player. And that's Carlos Williams, senior running back out of FSU. He's going to be 22 at the start of the season. He was a converted defensive back before he moved over to running back. And I like him a little bit more than I did in my initial evals. I'm still not a huge fan. He's still not in my top 10 running backs, but he's closer to the top 10 than he was. There is a lot of positives to his game, but I also saw a big change in his tape from 2013 to 2014. It seemed like he either gained weight and got slow, or I don't know if he suffered an injury in 2014 that just mentally slowed him down, but it seemed like he was almost a different player between 2013 and 2014. Am I alone in seeing that, or am I just losing my mind?
No, I saw a little bit of that as well. I mean, we kind of picked Williams because I think we're going to be able to find a little bit of dissension here because I like Carlos Williams, and I have liked Carlos Williams. He is just outside my top 10. First thing that jumps out at me is when I see 6'1", 230. You know, I love seeing that. I mean, that's nice size. He ran well at the combine. He is a converted defensive back, but that kind of makes some sense to me in his play style because the first thing I noted on him is that he is super aggressive and super physical. He does not shy away from contact, not one bit. He's not afraid to get dirty blocking at all. I mean, he will get after, you know, a blitzing linebacker, a defensive end. And so I love seeing a kid that plays hard-nosed like that. And you got to think that that type of willing attitude and willingness to get after it will earn him, you know, good graces in the coach's view. He has decent footwork. You know, he's a one-cut runner. You know, he's not going to bounce outside. He's pretty much going to take that first hole, get it, you know, get in there, you know, make one cut, plant, and get what he can get. I think he's going to fit a little bit better in his zone blocking scheme because of that. You know, I mean, there are definitely some knocks too. He runs way too tall. I mean, way too tall. He doesn't get really good leverage. Like, you know, when a linebacker meets him in the hole, that linebacker's probably bringing him down because the backer's going to have leverage on him. He's not good when he gets met at the line of scrimmage. Not good at all. He's not a make you miss kind of guy. You know, like I said before, he's going to make that one cut, get in the hole. He's not going to shake a lot of guys. He's just going to, you know, pretty much get what's taken or get what's given, excuse me.
He's still going to take that linebacker for an extra yard or two, though. He keeps them legs churning.
Yeah, he does that. I mean, the dude plays hard, man. There's not an ounce of quit in this kid that I saw anyway. You know, obviously he's shared the backfield at Florida State with some pretty good running backs. There's one guy that we don't particularly care for that he shared the backfield with at one point in time, but there's also a kid there that in 2014 that's pretty damn good back and is starting to get some love in the Devy circles as well. But I like Carlos Williams. I think he's gonna fit in somewhere in the pros. I think he's gonna get drafted. He's gonna make a roster. There's no telling what his role is gonna be, but you know, I kind of liken him to a C.J. Anderson type player. I mean, that's who he kind of reminds me of. He's got a similar frame. He's got a similar style. I don't think he's anywhere near as talented as C.J. Anderson, but that's kind of the guy that if I had to compare his game to anyone, that's the kind of guy that I'm similar to.
See, and I think we disagree on what his game is because when I watched him, I saw a lot more of that bouncing to the outside. If that lane wasn't open, if he didn't see it, he was going to the outside. But if there's a lane, then he's all about following his blocks, you know, going where he's supposed to go. But if it doesn't look like it's open, taking it to the outside, and he could get away with it at college football because, I mean, he showed it at the combine. He's got some speed. His short area quickness is one of the biggest pluses to his game, in my opinion. You know, he can turn on the jets and burst through those holes. I mean, you watch him get through the line, you know, just shoot between the guards. But if he gets caught at the line of scrimmage, he's going down. You know, he may get an extra yard or two, but he's going down. Very rarely do you see him break tackles going up the middle of the field. And I think excuse me, he's going to try and take it outside, and he's going to feel like he can do that comfortably because I don't think I saw one play where he got caught behind the line of scrimmage after taking it to the outside. He was constantly gaining yards doing it, so he had no reason to learn not to do it. So even if he does catch on with the roster, that's something he's going to have to work out of his game if he ever works it out of his game. He is a smart runner. I do like him, but I'm not over the moon about the guy. I think there's a lot of potential downside to his game as well. But
yeah, there's definitely that with him. And one thing we didn't mention is his work in the swing game. I thought he looked really good running the little, like the little bubble swing. He tracked the ball really well. Caught the ball over the shoulder with his hands and then got upfield. So that's just another facet to his game that, and we're not sitting here talking about a guy that we think is going to even be an RB2, in fantasy. But, there are some things to like. There's some things to not like. But overall, I mean, this is not even close to the worst prospect that we've seen this year at running back. Not even close. And, I got to say, every time I watch tape on him, I like him a little bit more.
Yeah, I'd take him over Jeremy Langford. And I know you.
I think that's close. I like Langford a little bit better as a pro style running back, but they're going to be super close in my rankings, and probably I got to imagine in everybody's rankings they're going to be in the same little group of guys that are, just outside the running backs that everybody's talking about right now.
Yeah, they're in the same group for me, but I give Williams the edge. But there are some guys out there that are all aboard the Langford train, and I'm not seeing it. But I would much rather have Williams over him. He's the kind of guy where if he gets put behind a more established running back, say kind of like Alfred Blue was last year, I'd be real excited about him as a handcuff. He's a guy that he's going to be able to do enough to hold down that the coaching staff is going to feel confident enough in him if their RB1 goes down, they're going to feel confident enough in him to kind of fill in the role, and that'll be worth fantasy output. But he's not. I don't see him earning a job as a starter on his own. And I think that'll wrap it up, unless you have anything else you wanted to add on. All right, and next will be a first for the show. Will be our IDP evaluation. We'll bring you our eval on Denzel Perryman, who's a senior inside linebacker out of the University of Miami. This guy's super young, just like Cooper was. He's going to be 21 at the start of the season. And I have to say, I'm not a huge fan of the guy. Tyler and I, kind of spitballed back and forth on him before the show started, but there's just not a whole lot of aspects to his game I like. He's super aggressive. He takes good angles of pursuits, but past that, there's a lot of holes in his game. I see him make a lot of arm tackles. If he gets caught up on blocks fairly often. And as an NFL linebacker, I'm not terribly excited about him. And if he's not going to be a good NFL linebacker, chances are he's probably not going to be a good IDP linebacker. Now, Tyler, I know you're a little more refined in your defensive scouting, so why don't you give us your take?
Well, first of all, I'm glad we're finally doing some IDPs. This is, to use the word, my favorite. But watching linebackers, scout linebackers, that's my favorite part of breaking down tape. Denzel Perryman. So I watched Miami live several times this year, and if you just watch the Miami game, it's 52, 52, 52. I mean, he's all over the place. And I thought, man, 52 is a hell of a player. He's going to be all world. And then when you really get to breaking down his tape, he's got a lot of things that he does really well, but he has some things that he does, not well. And the first and most important thing, and a coach I used to have who was a defensive genius used to tell me the most important thing a linebacker can do is make the first step correct, or make the first two steps correct. And what Perryman does when you're in a like a 2nd and 6 type situation where you don't know if it's going to be a run, you don't know if it's going to be a pass, breezes. in that short amount of time when he freezes and he's either making a lateral step or no step at all, the guard's on him, the tackle's on him, and he absorbs that block. And once he absorbs that block, he has a very, very difficult time stacking the block and shedding it. I mean, he has just a really tough time getting off blocks. Now, when we're talking a situation where, it's a running situation or a running down, or when he's on, like a stunt and he's already got a head of steam heading towards the line of scrimmage at the snap, he will absolutely annihilate a blocker or a ball carrier or the first guy that he runs into. He can just eliminate him. And I love watching that part of his game. He's, like Drew said, he is very, very aggressive. He's very physical. He plays with a high motor. You could tell he was the leader of that team, and I love all that about him. And when he gets in position to make the tackle, he's a good tackler. He gets his hips in, he pulls them through, he gets the ball carrier down, but so often he's not in a great spot to make that tackle because his initial read wasn't good. And he either gets swallowed up by a blocker or he's just outside the lane and then he's just reaching with his arms trying to make the play. So I'm afraid we're looking at a 2-down linebacker here. He's okay in coverage. He's okay in zone coverage. He is bad in man coverage. He is not a good man coverage linebacker. And if you matched him up on like a Gio Bernard or something like that, which is what linebackers are asked to do on third down, he's going to get roasted. There's no way he can stay with a guy like that. So I like his game. I like him as a football player. I'm afraid we're not looking at a very good fantasy option here, though.
Any difference for you in terms of value, whether he goes 4-3 or 3-4 inside?
I think he's going to be a much better 3-4 inside linebacker. A jack or a strong inside linebacker. I think he'd do a much better job at that. Now, granted, he's not going to get as covered up, or he's not going to have linemen in there covering up potential blockers, but I think he's going to do a lot better job at that because his coverage responsibilities would be less. So I think he's going to be a much better fit in a 3-4, a system like, a Rex Ryan system or a Dick LeBeau system, something like that. I think he'd be a much better fit in the 3-4.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Say he goes to this 3-4, he's got the starting job. Where are you comfortable taking him in an IDP rookie draft?
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just so not in love with this inside linebacker class. And we were talking about before we went on air, and we're talking about Kendricks, and I like Kendricks, but if Kendricks were in last year's class, he'd be like LB5. I mean, and he's a good player, but I'm thinking if I'm taking him in a rookie draft, I'm probably looking at like a 5th rounder. I'm just not going to spend that high of a draft pick, a 3rd or 4th rounder in an IDP league on a guy that may never even make my roster or even make my starting lineup, I guess. I'd much rather take a shot at a high upside offensive player or even a pass rushing guy like, Beasley or, Ray, a guy like that. Not Ray. I don't like Ray. Beasley or Gregory, somebody like that. I'd much rather take a stab at a guy like that than a 2-down linebacker, because anybody that's rostered Brandon Spikes knows what a 2-down linebacker does in your on your roster. He stays on your bench because he's just not going to give you the tackles you want. He's going to give you 5-6 tackles a week with no big play upside, and it could essentially turn into a wasted roster spot. Perryman may be a 3-down linebacker. It may happen one day, and I may be just way, way off on this because I know that the pundits and the people in the know, have Perryman penciled in a lot higher than I do. But I'm not going to say he's completely off my radar because he's not, but the cost of acquisition is going to have to be very low for me to speculate on him.
Yeah. It's a hashtag hot take, and I like it. And let's move on from that into another piece of IDP content. Our first submitted question coming from username 02. And he asks, not sure of what experience you guys have with IDP, but it seems prevalent in dynasty leagues to use IDP instead of team defense. Honestly, I'd rather use nothing over team defense. But IDP is pretty much better in all ways. If you're not playing IDP, then you're pretty much telling us that half of football doesn't matter. But enough talking about IDP and why it's better, and let's answer his question. Is there a fair way to compare the values of IDPs to offensive players? The only way I've been able to do so is purely based on the scoring of the league and how that player has performed. Is this the best way to go about it? Are specific positions comparable to one another? And Tyler, I'm going to let you take the helm on this one.
Yeah, so we got us another fairly complex question here, really. And this is the most difficult aspect of IDP Dynasty. And it's difficult for guys that have played it for years and years and years and have tons of experience.
Amen.
I know some guys that have been at this stuff for a long, long time, and it's still a struggle. Tiers, man. Tiers are huge, and they're huge in any form of drafting, especially in a startup. You want to tier every position, running back, wide out, what have you. But it becomes even more important in IDP. Defensive end is a position that somewhat mirrors running back and tight end in that it's quite scarce to find a week in, week out stud starter at defensive end is quite difficult. You got your J.J. Watt, who's off the charts. J.J. Watt is worth a first-round pick in almost any scoring format in IDP. And then you drop. And then you got Robert Quinn and Jason Pierre-Paul and Chandler Jones. And then we drop again. So defensive end is the position that I put the most premium on in IDP. Linebackers are probably going to be your top scorers. Depending on scoring setup, I tend to prefer a tackle-heavy scoring setup. Linebackers are going to be your top scorers: Luke Kuechly, Levante David, Bobby Wagner, guys like that. Those are the guys you want. Defensive back is somewhat similar to linebacker. They're going to score less, but finding defensive backs on the waiver wire is pretty easy to do. Unless you're in a really big league, and like the league that the subreddit Money League, it's a 14-teamer. We roster 60 players.
I think it's
in that league.
It's either 50 or 55 with a 5-man taxi.
It's a shitload of players. So in that league, it's not as easy to go find your starters on the wire, but it can still be done. It's always nice to have that, high-end Harrison Smith, Morgan Burnett type safety anchoring your defense, but it's not altogether necessary. And what I mean by in terms of tiers is you don't want to break a tier because, I need a linebacker, and it's the 6th round, and you just watched 3 or 4 go. You don't want to jump in there and take the next highest ranked linebacker when you still have a wide receiver in tier 3, because the offensive players are always going to be greater than the defensive players. Maybe not necessarily a defensive end, but even then I'm still probably leaning an offense almost time because it's so much more difficult to fill those slots. So this is what, like I said, it is the toughest aspect of IDP is when do I take the IDP? When do I take the linebacker over the wide receiver? And it all comes down to, like I said, tiers. You absolutely have to break it down. If you want to see some good tiers, head over to Dynasty League Football and look at their rankings. They have some really, really good IDP rankers. And if you click on the rankings, it'll actually show you the tiers and give a short synopsis of each player. You can also head over to Fake Pigskin and check out B's rankings. They're really, really good as well. I mean, they are on point. The IDP landscape is changing right now, and there are several guys, at the cutting edge of kind of reworking the way things are done. So a lot of good information out there, but research. We're not necessarily paying as much attention to how many points a guy scores. It's almost a wins above replacement situation. If you're going to take a Levante David and pass a Jordan Matthews, that's probably a bad play, because you can take Jordan Matthews and then 3 rounds later you can get a C.O. Moore or a Keenan Robinson who are going to put up comparable points to a Levante David, and now you have a solid wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, whatever you want to call Matthews. So a lot of strategy involved. It's very, very, very complex, but run some mocks. Take a look at ADPs. Look at all you got to do is ask. There are plenty of guys out there that will give you links to piece here and kind of give you an idea of how things flow. So,
yeah. And one thing that's really good to keep in mind is it's a lot easier to replace a LB2 than it is a wide receiver 2 or running back 2. And LB2, I'm not gonna say they grow on trees, but if you can do your research and you know what you're doing, they're a lot easier to find. They're a lot easier to predict and find, hiding, as opposed to, you're not just gonna find a Jordan Matthews floating around somewhere. Most everybody's gonna know who Jordan Matthews is, and you're not gonna get any sort of discount on him. So the more and more comfortable you are with your evaluation skills in terms of IDP is also when you can start passing on IDP, waiting longer and longer to take it. Unless you're going after, the top tier guys, because they're gonna put up comparable numbers and they're not going to change year to year. But overall, it all depends on how comfortable you are with your own evaluations.
Yeah, and if you're not comfortable with your evaluations, like I said, head over to these websites. Check out these guys that are doing the rankings, that are doing the tier rankings. They know what they're doing. There's no two ways about it. There's always somebody better than you out there, always somebody smarter. And you'll find that most of these guys are easy to talk to and are more than willing to help out. They love to help out. That's what they do. So there's a lot of information out there. You really just need to immerse yourself in it. Just jump both feet in the pool and get after it.
Yeah, and Tyler won't put his name out there, but he's right on that same level in terms of IDP knowledge. That there is clearly a tier in terms of IDP knowledge on Twitter as well, and he's right up there with the rest of them. You guys, there's no one easier to talk to. I mean, he's a good old country boy.
I appreciate that, Drew. I do. I really do.
He is going to spit some weird sayings at you once in a while, though, and you're not going to have any idea what he means. So just let him go through that.
Yeah, you're not going to understand. There's going to be some regional colloquialisms thrown out there. No telling what I'm talking about.
Just pretend it's epilepsy.
Just put on your Texas filter, and maybe you can gain what I'm trying to say through context.
All right, and there's a second part to this question that Law of Murphy wanted to know. It says, just to build off of this, what's the most common IDP rules for Dynasty leagues, and what's the most common, starting rosters? And he asks, is it one defensive lineman, one linebacker, one defensive back? And for me, leagues where you're starting one of each, it's not even worth it. You're not even getting to experience what IDP is about, because you're stuck having to go with those top 12, top 10 options, and there's no chance to mine depth. There's no chance to, evaluate depth. It's all about, I just got to get JJ Watt, or I got to get Robert Quinn, or I got to get Chandler Jones. And there's no hunting for who's going to break out next. Personally, for me, I'm not going any lighter than 2 defensive linemen, 3 linebacker, and 2 defensive backs. I would rather go and add 2 flexes between the defensive line, defensive backs. On top of that, maybe add on a linebacker as well. But if you're going to do that, you need to have some big rosters, like 50-ish, because you need to be able to have some depth. And in terms of scoring for these IDP, I'm of the belief that 1.5 points tackle, 3/4 of a point for an assist, 2 points tackle for a loss, 2 points a sack. That's about where I am. Interceptions, I like having big points for interceptions. I like 6 points interceptions. It's basically a touchdown for the defense, and I mean they don't happen often enough to where it's going to kill your game. Forced fumble, 4. Fumble recovery, 3. I can't remember the pass defended, 1.5. Kind of give your cornerbacks a little bit of value, but I mean that seems fairly standard to me.
Yeah, in my experience, that's about right. Most of the leagues that I play in, it's 1.5 points per solo tackle as the base. And there's so many ways that you can score IDP. There are leagues that award points for sack yardage, which I don't care for stuff like that because it's quite arbitrary. Uh, but and there's so many people out there in search of better scoring systems, ways to make corners more relevant, ways to make defensive tackles more relevant. Uh, Most of the leagues that I play in and the IDP leagues that I commission, we have defensive line premium. Where if a solo tackle for a linebacker is worth 1.5 or 2 points, well, the solo tackle for the defensive lineman's worth 3 points. And that allows you to bring more relevance to a position that is absolutely void of depth. It's so hard to fill defensive end. It is so freaking hard. Yeah, there's so many things or so many different ways to do it. And, I think that, the IDP landscape is changing. Like I alluded to earlier, things are changing. There's some really sharp minds out there. We're constantly in search of better scoring, better lineups, better ways to do this. And, it's time to get in on it now because it's going to be the norm, in 2 or 3 years. I'm thinking more leagues will be IDP than not. So, and once you get into it, I've never, not once, had a guy get into IDP that hadn't been in it before, that didn't prefer it, that didn't like it better. It's just so much more complex. It's more challenging. And that's what we're here for. I mean, it's all about the competition. That's why we do what we do, because we want to compete. And adding IDPs to your rosters is just a great way to enhance your experience overall.
Absolutely, and it makes you appreciate the whole entire side of the game. That if fantasy football was how you got into football, then you rarely gave any attention to the defensive side of the ball. And I know quite a few people, and I'm one of them, that watching a good defensive scheme is just as exciting as watching a well executed offense. It's and getting to get attention to that and watch that, bringing excitement to another game you probably weren't going to watch because you didn't have anybody in their offense. Now I'm going to have Curtis Lofton on Oakland's defense. I wasn't going to watch their offense. Well, most people weren't going to watch their offense. I was going to watch it because I have Derek Carr, but most people weren't going to watch it. But for all of you who just sat here for the last, 15, 20 minutes and could care less about what we're saying because you don't play IDP, I'm telling you, you will not regret joining an IDP league. Get in, go in head first though. Don't do any of this halfway one of each position. Just do it. Instead of, I've heard people say they want to read about it for a season, try and learn about it before they do it. Don't. It's better just jump right in, make your mistakes, learn that way. Because year 2, you'll be like, I drafted DeQuell Jackson as my LB3. I can't believe I did that. I'll never do something like that again. It teaches you. Whereas if you just read about it, that's gone in 2 weeks. You don't remember in 2 weeks. Your mistakes stick with you, though. I'm telling you, IDP is the way to go. And for all of you that stuck with us through all that IDP talk, we're going to give you a bit of a reprieve. We'll go back to some offense.
Yeah, now we got to talk about running backs. Blah.
I mean, at least one of them, the first one we bring up, is a good running back.
Is the only running back.
Todd Gurley takes offense to that.
Oh, Todd Gurley. Yeah, I knew you had to slide in your weekly Todd Gurley mention.
Damn right. But our question comes from Chikessel, and if that's not how you say it, oops. It says Le'Veon Bell suspended for 3 games. What is the value of D'Angelo Williams as a 3-game replacement and possible handcuff? Worth any draft picks or just a pure waiver pickup? I don't think he's worth any draft picks at all. I mean, I barely thought he was worth any draft picks as the starter in Carolina. So as a 3-game starter in Pitt, I'm not. And I'm not entirely convinced he'll be the starter if Arizona. Pittsburgh decides they want a running back in this draft, they can get a decent one in 5th or 6th round. You know, they probably got a better chance of hitting on a running back in that round than any other position in this draft. So unless you can get them for free, I'm probably not interested.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty cut and dry. I mean, 3 games in Dynasty means absolutely nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing. That's a bit of an overstatement, but it doesn't mean very much. You know, if you can go get Le'Veon off of the waiver wire for $1, or not Le'Veon, excuse me, if you can go get D'Angelo off of the waiver wire for $1, or just straight up through free agency, sure, why not? But other than that, he's just, in my opinion, just barely worth a roster spot.
So what would you think about if you could get Le'Veon off the waiver wire for $1?
Well, that'd be okay, obviously, but yeah.
I guess I'd be all right with that.
I didn't realize what I had said till I look over there, and Drew's making a little bit of a face at me. I said Le'Veon, didn't I?
I'm surprised you didn't hear me guffawing over here, but let's move on to
It's late.
Excuses. That's what that is.
Yeah, there you go.
Our next question comes from our buddy Bane the Geach, who submitted a question to us last week about his trade. He gave, Larry Fitzgerald for the 207. He then gave the 207 for Marcus Wheaton. He wanted to give us a little bit of an update where he traded Marcus Wheaton for the 206, like a sneaky little bastard. I hate being in a league with this guy because he does shenanigans like that all the time. I don't know how he does it. I don't know what kind of dirt he has on these people, but I don't like it. But that wasn't his question. He just wanted to make sure we knew about that.
Yeah, he atoned for at least what we deemed to be a mistake last week. So good on you, Matt. Good on you.
He said, "What is your current asking price for Dante Moncrief and DeMarco Murray?" And I'm gonna start off with Dante Moncrief, and I'm gonna say if I'm not getting the 106, I need to be getting better than the 106 to move Moncrief, because I don't care that Andre Johnson's there. He's 33. It's not like he's gonna be Ray Rice. It is late. Apparently, I've lost my mind too. God, he's not going to play until he's old. He's got a couple of years left at best. Moncrief's going to be the starter. Hell, Moncrief might have fantasy startable numbers this year playing on the outside, because I'm almost certain Hilton's going to be moved to the slot. If I'm not getting, a top 5 player in this draft, guys I really like, and I have to really like them, I might not even take the 105 for him, honestly. But 105 would probably be what I'd be asking for him.
Yeah, I wrote down 106. So I think I'd probably take the 106 for him. Probably. I don't know. Most of the places where I have Moncrief, it's, I'm kind of counting on him being a starter for me come 2016. We've already talked about how we don't really love the second tier of this rookie class. So yeah, Moncrief for me, I'm just not really into selling him. And Drew and I were talking earlier, his value's actually gone down since the signing of Andre Johnson. So if I was ever looking to sell him, I'm really not looking to sell him now because we're in a trough. So Moncrief for me, like Drew said, I'm gonna need a top 5, top 6 draft pick. That's about all I'd even be interested in.
All right, and how about DeMarco Murray?
I don't know. I'd sell DeMarco Murray for less than I would sell Moncrief for. I wouldn't trade Moncrief straight up for DeMarco. There's probably some people that'll bring out the pitchforks and crucify me for that, but I wouldn't. DeMarco's the kind of guy I'm looking to sell, man. Sell. I'd like to get a package of like a late first and plus a guy like Devontae Adams, something like that would be beautiful for me. I might even take Devontae straight up for DeMarco. So we've talked before about my disdain for running backs in general, and also running backs who happen to play for University of Oklahoma. So I'm not going to be able to give you a great answer here because I just don't like him.
Well, he is 27, so in Dynasty eyes, he's practically dead. And I'm going to give you this point of view from a guy who owns all the 0 shares of DeMarco Murray. I sold my one last share of him before the season last year. And I'd probably take the 107 for him. Let me go get some Jay Ajayi and replace him. Other than that, and I'd be hesitant because I know I could get more for him. But overall, I'm selling because the value is not going to be higher. I mean, he just came off a historic season for his career, and his value dropped from last year, which means nothing he's going to do next year is going to help. So I'm getting off the train now. I'm getting what I can get. If I have to take the 108 and take TJ Yeldon, I'm doing it. If I have to take the 109, take Nelson Aguilar, I'm probably doing it.
Actually, you'd take it.
Yeah, I'd take it.
You'd take it. I would too.
I'd feel dirty as hell about it. I'd have to go take a shower and cry, but I don't have to because I don't own DeMarco Murray. But I'm going to own Nelson Aguilar. And I don't think we need to hate on DeMarco Murray anymore. We don't need people hearing too much about it.
We made our stance pretty clear.
Yeah, we officially hate old people. I mean, I made it clear in like the 3rd episode of the podcast that I'm okay with setting old people on fire in rivers in India. So,
and you more so than me, but in this particular player's case, or not even necessarily this particular player, but this 27-year-old injury-prone running back, yeah, that's a ride I want off of.
Old people are a burden to society. And speaking of old people, this leads us to his second question, which is Justin Hardy. Is he a late round stud? ? So, what do you got? I know you like my transition.
I love it. Yeah, we were saying, what's Justin Hardy, like 36 coming out of college, something
roughly
like that? I like Justin Hardy, man. He was uber productive in college. Justin Hardy looks like a perfect kind of, 3rd roundish, type of stab at wide receiver. A lot of these guys, you just don't know how they're going to transition to the NFL. But I like his game, and he is firmly on my radar as a guy that I'd like to acquire, in several spots because his price is going to be probably pretty damn palatable. To be honest, I mean, his price is going to be right for a guy with his pedigree and his production in college. So.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree. He's not even in my top 20 wide receivers for this rookie class. I'm not digging Justin Hardy. I think he's going to be one of those guys that, kind of like we talked about last week with Devin Smith, where he's going to be more useful as a football player than as a fantasy player. I think he's going to carve out a niche as a slot receiver. He's going to have a lot of utility there, but it's not going to have enough volume to produce fantasy numbers. I think the fact that his stats were so high in college is going to lead to him being overdrafted in a lot of rookie drafts. And I say let it happen. It's going to let one player I like fall closer to where my draft pick is.
Where's your threshold of where you would take Hardy? If you would take him.
It would have to be a 5-round rookie draft non-IDP.
Really? So you'd have to be taking him in the 5th round?
Yep.
Wow, we are way off here. I like it.
Yep. He is pretty far down my board. But I feel like we're not gonna make amends on this one tonight. So let's move on to our next question. Coming from Meta Franco, says, when participating in a dynasty league, what do you feel is a good ratio for starters to bench spots? I'm currently in a 12-team PPR starting requirements are 1 QB, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, tight end, flex, kicker, defense, and we have 20 roster spots. I'm trying to convince them to bump it up or create a taxi squad. Is 20 too little for a true dynasty league? So let me count it out for you. That is a 10-man starting lineup. Leaves him with 10 bench spots. I don't know about you, but I got out of redraft for a reason. And it's reasons like that. I can't, if I don't have enough room on my roster to hold depth and let it develop, then I might as well be playing redraft. If I had a 10-man starting lineup, yeah, granted, kicker and defense is one of them. I want at least 26 roster spots. At least.
Yeah, that's dead on for me. I think I need starting 10, you need to be rostering, and like Drew said, 26 to 30. I think 2.5 to 3 times the size of your starting lineup should be about what you're rostering. And IDP, I'd argue we'd probably go a little bit higher than that. You know, probably 3 times as many. Creating a taxi squad, I don't know if that really matters so much. Taxi squads are just kind of fun. And I play in a few leagues where the taxi squad, you put a guy on taxi squad, once you promote him, he can never go back to your taxi squad. And I kind of like that. A lot of people call it anti-fun, but I kind of like that because it makes you think. You know, once you promote that guy, and if he ends up taking a little bit longer to develop than you would have liked, you're going to have to chew up that roster spot for however long until he either hits or you drop him. So that's kind of cool. So I don't know if the need for a taxi squad is there, but the rosters absolutely need to be expanded because bye weeks, they happen. It's they happen every year. You're going to have bye weeks. Injuries, they happen. Guys are going to get injured. The last thing you want to be doing is, dropping a Devontae Adams to pick up a guy to, and it's your duty and your responsibility as a member of the league to field the starting lineup every week. And you don't want to have to, drop upside guys that you're waiting, to break out or haven't entered a good situation yet. You don't want to be to your lineup. So I would push to get those rosters expanded like ASAP.
Yep. I mean, if they're fighting about it, offer a plan. Offer a plan for slow expansion. Increase it by 2 spots a year. By 2017, have it hit 26. Make it a more palatable idea for them. Because increasing to 22, that just means you got to cut 2 less guys before your rookie draft. And I just, with 20 roster spots, that's the point where I'm not even rostering 2 QBs. I'm waiver wiring my second QB. It's just there's not enough room, and that
because you can.
Yeah, and that kills the point of dynasty for me. It kills the entire idea of winning with depth. And I think we've kind of beat this one to death a little bit. Let's move on to our next question from Mountain Bike, MT Bike, which is probably my new favorite username. And he's got a couple of topics he'd be interested in hearing about. He wants to talk about positional tiers. He wants some bold predictions from us. And he wants to know about Johnny Football. He put it in all caps, so I'm assuming he's excited about it. So let's start off with Johnny Football because he's so excited. I don't think Josh McCown's going to finish this season as the Cleveland starter. I think Johnny's going to get his fair shake at the job if he's good enough to do it. If he's good enough to hold the job, I think he can do it, which is a useless sentence. I think Johnny's good enough to hold the job. I think he's good enough to beat out McCown. I think McCown was brought in there as a safety blanket. If Johnny can get his head right, if Johnny can focus and cut out all the shenanigans and the partying and everything and focus on being an NFL QB, I don't think there's any reason why he can't succeed and be an NFL caliber quarterback. And you're going to disagree with me. I'm betting.
I'm not. Let's take the character issues and just kind of throw them out the window. Everybody knows what they are. They're there. He's got character issues. He's a party hound. I mean, he may be a drug addict. Who the hell knows? I don't really care. I think we're putting the cart before the horse with this guy to just automatically assume that he has zero value and he's never going to be an NFL quarterback because that sample size is super, super, super small. And he looked like he was bad in 2 games. Where he was admittedly not prepared, which is a problem. I'm not saying it's not a problem that he, wasn't being a gym rat. But do you remember Johnny Manziel at Texas A&M? He was pretty good.
Just a little, yeah.
He was real good. This dude has a high football IQ. He's a playmaker. I mean, he sees the field. So, I think he has a shot. I really do think he has a shot. Will I be surprised if he just totally busts out and washes out? No, I really won't be. But will I be surprised if he turns it into a viable fantasy starter? Not at all. Not one bit.
All right. There's your Johnny Manziel take from us. Let's move on to a little bit of positional tiers. And this is kind of an open-ended one, so I'm just going to kind of hit on it with the first thing that comes to mind when I think of positional tiers, and that's setting your rookie draft board. For me, I'm going to have a set, solid rookie draft board down to however deep I need it to go before the NFL draft ever happens. I have them with detailed tiers. I'm going to be confident in these tiers and be confident in my own evaluations. Because once that draft happens, everybody's going to start just losing their minds, shitting themselves blind over situation. And you have to remember, talent is more important than situation. So these situations need to do one thing. It needs to make adjustments inside of tiers. If, say, you have 4 running backs inside of one tier and one of them goes to Dallas, say they were at the bottom of the tier. If one of them goes to Dallas, move them to the top of that tier. But don't jump them out of that tier even because they went to Dallas. You didn't believe in their talent enough to put them in the higher tier for a reason. And don't let their situation change that.
Yeah, there's way too much here. This is another very complex question, and I can't ramble on and on about it. So I'm just going to pass. Kick it right back to Drew. We'll move on to the next one.
Lazy Tyler.
I've done enough rambling for one night. I'm positive of that.
It's true. I'm sick of hearing you talk, old man.
Hey.
But what's not going to be sick of hearing is some hot takes, bold predictions. What do you got for me, Tyler?
My hot take right now.
Set it on fire.
Dwayne Bowe. Dwayne Bowe is going to finish in the top 15 PPR wide receivers next year. Oh. Drew looks like he's about to explode right now. It's the hottest of hot. I see Dwayne Bowe having a big year next year. He's going to get in the end zone. I like Dwayne Bowe next year because I have to like Dwayne Bowe next year because I've got him rostered on a couple playoff teams.
I love it.
Is that not smoking hot right there?
Oh, that's so hot. I'm excited. My face is getting red. Whew. I need to cool off. That makes my hot take look lukewarm at best. Shoot. I was going to say that Brandon Cooks will be a top 8 fantasy wide receiver if he starts every game, but I can't touch Dwayne Bowe top 15. Oh, man. I feel like I got to come back with a better bold prediction next week.
Well, I mean, Brandon Cooks in the top 8, depending on who you talk to. They might call you. I mean, they might want to put you in the loony bin for that.
Let them.
We're going to get so flamed for this.
That's all right. I'll go to the loony bin wearing my Brandon Cooks jersey.
And your indoor beanie.
Hey. It's comfortable. And I got nothing else to say about it. Bunch of haters. All right, let's move on to our last question for the night. Coming from our man Adam, old Sticky Z. What is y'all's take on the future of the running back position? It looks like the trend of running back by committee is going to explode upward with all these talented backs coming into the league. Do you see this as pumping up the top running backs and devaluing the running back 2 slot? I don't see it devaluing the running back 2 slot, honestly. I think it changes how we're going to evaluate the running back 2 slot. I think we're going to be looking for more players that can participate as pass catchers. I think that a lot of the running backs who can't catch the ball are just they're going to fall off our dynasty radars altogether unless they've got a lead back role like somebody like Alfred Morris does. So guys that, Chris Ivory, guys like that, they're going to fall off the board. And guys like Shane Vereen, guys like, hell, why can't I think of any pass catching backs?
Dirty Danny Woodhead.
There you go.
He's getting Dirty Danny. He is super effective in PPR.
Exactly. I think that's going to be what the RB2 slot starts to look like. And it's going to become as much of a by committee for your fantasy team as it is for the NFL. And I think it absolutely does pump up the top running backs. I think Bell is as highly valued as he is because of positional scarcity. Gurley is going to be as highly valued as he is because of positional scarcity. If you like Lacey, he's going to be as highly valued as he is because of positional scarcity. There's no one that there's such a dearth of young running back talent that the guys who actually are young and talented, their value gets inflated just because there's so few of them. If only a couple of teams are going to have these guys on their team, then the guys that don't have them are going to be willing to pay more to get them because they want them.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, the bell cow running backs have been and always will be, the most valuable at their position. And that's, the question answers itself there. And then you brought up a guy like Alfred Morris. I like Alfred Morris. I think he's a fine player. But in PPR fantasy, it takes Alfred Morris an entire game of grinding and grinding and grinding and assuming he doesn't, get into the end zone. It takes him an entire game to do what Vereen or Woodhead do in 3 or 4 catches. So that's where I tend to lean. If I don't have a Le'Veon or a Lacey, and I don't have them in really any spots, I'm just looking to kind of cobble together some good PPR backs and give me some cheap points, because it's almost kind of, cheating the system that way, but it is what it is. That's the most effective way of scoring points is to catch a pass. If it's a pass, that's 1.5. Bam, done. Takes Alfred Morris 4 carries to get you 15 or to get you, that same amount of points. So for me, it's all about accruing pass catching backs.
Yeah, like Alfred Morris. An Alfred Morris stat line of 17 for 80 and no touchdowns, not all that surprising to see. But if you throw on 3 receptions for 35 yards, all of a sudden that's a decent fantasy day. And the problem is Morris isn't going to get that. Morris is going to have to get those touchdowns to take him into those point ranges. But Morris is good enough on his own to be an RB2, just regardless. And I didn't mean to turn this into the let's talk about Alfred Morris, because I feel like he's one of those guys that people are fairly split on. You either really like Alfred Morris or you could care less. And I missed the train on Alfred Morris. I wasn't in the country when he kind of came out of nowhere, so I played catch up on the hype train, and I still hadn't caught up yet.
Well, the hype train's about to, it's about to be over. I mean, he's entering his 4th year now. He's not a spring chicken anymore. In NFL running back years, he's probably starting to enter the twilight of his career. I know it sounds odd, but that's just kind of the way these things work.
I know. I'm waiting for the train to derail so I can finally catch up.
Yeah, then you can go grab a share and go get 7 points a week because it is just excruciating.
That sounds like a good plan. I like it. But that is the end of our questions for this week. And I don't have a rant for this week. I feel like my rant was so inflammatory and just vulgar and just all around bad that I feel like that's good enough for 2 weeks. I feel a little bit bad for making some of y'all listen to that, and it might have offended some of you. If that's the case, I apologize. I do still think some people needed to hear it. That's why I left it in when I edited the audio. But for those of you who didn't need to hear it, I apologize that you heard it. So no rant this week. You guys get to leave on a happy note. Leave with some smiles. But
yeah, there you go. There you go. I did want to give a couple quick shout outs. Drew mentioned that I had an IDP article come out this week. I'm going to be writing for a new website, ffcouchcoach.com. You'll need to go check it out. It's a really cool site. Hopefully we got some big things coming that way. And another thing, and I don't hear near enough thanks thrown in the direction of the guys at draftbreakdown.com. In fact, I hear very little at all. There is so we can't do without those guys providing the tape, getting it so well organized. I mean, they've got notes, they've got, I mean, the sounds are just great on these guys, and I really don't know what we would do without them. We'd just be Googling shitty YouTube videos and reading generic scouting reports and everything else, trying to find these guys. So they may never even hear our voice, but I wanted to throw that out there because what they do is just super important to the Dynasty community.
Absolutely. I mean, I hyped up Matt Waldman's RSP last week, but Matt Waldman couldn't do his RSP if it wasn't for Draft Breakdown. These guys are seriously taken for granted, and they provide just an invaluable service to the Dynasty community, to the scouting community, to the fantasy community. They're an invaluable resource. It's just, if they decided tomorrow that they're going to charge for usage, I'd be subscribed tomorrow.
Pony up immediately. What's it cost? Because I'm paying it.
Yeah, here's my PayPal. Here's my credit card. Let me go watch some more tape.
Yeah, we may have just messed up there.
I'm sure they've considered it.
Would it not be worth whatever they charge? I mean, it really would be. It's an amazing service that they provide to the community.
Absolutely. Look at how much Game Rewind costs, and people pony up for that. So, I mean, I love that you brought that up, because if you're not using them, then you're doing yourself a disservice. You're not as prepared as you could be. This is absolutely something you should be using as a Dynasty owner. And it's such an invaluable resource. I can't even begin to put it into words. It just is. So instead of sitting here without words, let's wrap it up for the week. You got any last parting shots for us?
No, we're good today, man.
All right, guys, it's been another great week. Thanks for joining us. This has been the Dynasty Playbook, the Dynasty subreddit's dedicated podcast. I'm your host, Drew. You can find me on Reddit at EAF Marine and on Twitter at DrewDotson NFL. With me has been my excellent co-host, Tyler. You can find him on Reddit at Barles and on Twitter at HBomb9508. Thanks for joining us this week. We hope to see you again later.